Mabuhay! Thank you for joining me and salamat sa imong suporta sa akong video. I'd like to share with you something that I've learned over the past few years, and my experience has really shown me that this has worked to improve the relationships in our churches today. It's called life groups. We're going to explain what life groups is, how to implement it in your church, because I really want this for the Filipino people and for the Filipino churches. Let's get back to what it used to be. What did it used to be? It used to be that congregations would meet in homes and share things together. We can look at this in Acts chapter 2, verses 42. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and miraculous signs were done by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. Selling their possessions and goods, they gave to everyone who had need. Every day, they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. We need to get back to basics. We need to get back to the point where congregations are meeting and relationships build. And I don't think we've done that as much as we should have done that lately. I know my experiences here in the States is that congregations have kind of separated from each other. People in a congregation have separated from each other. And we need to bring back relationships. That's what Jesus wanted with his disciples and with the early church. Relationships is how we are to grow as a congregation. Think of life groups as the acronym SHARE. S is for serve. Service is so important in our churches today. I'm convinced that when God's people come together, they cannot help but serve one another. It's automatic. This is something that we want to do if we are together. When I led life groups over the past few years, I remember that some of the members that would come would be kind of quiet, and they may not be the person to step up and meet and greet other people in a normal assembly on Sunday morning. But as they got comfortable in the small group environment and in a circle of friends, they began to open up, and they were able to share a lot more than if they just went to church on Sunday morning. And this is what I wanted to tap into. If I could learn more about them, I could then share my life with them. I could share my resources and my things together. I know the Filipino people love to share so much, even more than any other country I've been to. But how can we do this unless we're together and we know about each other? We know each other's struggles. We know each other's personal lives and the areas that we can help. There's even a story I know of a woman who had trouble with transportation. She couldn't make it to the meeting for whatever reason. I think her car was broken or something. When the life group found out about her, they were able to talk to the elders, talk to the men of the congregation. They were able to talk to someone in order to get that lady some help. If this lady was not a part of this life ministry, she might not have been able to reach out to somebody she knew or was comfortable with to get the help that she needed. This is the purpose of life groups, to serve one another in the way that we need it the most. Heal. When we look at the first century church, we understand that the leaders reached out. They touched those that needed to be touched. They set aside time for those that needed healing and prayer. And I think that that's something a small group can do for each other, is to heal together, to build each other up, and to really find that finite way of communicating that I think individuals need in a small group atmosphere. Apply. Now, I know there's a lot of congregations that just have a Sunday morning service, and this is great. This is so necessary to hear a sermon that is preached on a Sunday morning. But unfortunately, I've seen many cases where that message that is so well needed isn't applied on an individual basis. This life group gives that ability to apply the message. How does the message affect us on our day-to-day lives? Well, we can break down the lesson and kind of get into bite sizes and share with each other different struggles and things that we've learned from the Sunday morning lesson. The Sunday morning lesson, I think that's so important and we need that. However, in a life group situation, you're able to kind of break down that lesson and share it with each other, learning from every point that was made in the morning. I know my wife and I like to talk maybe on the way home from Sunday morning's lesson just about what it means to us and how we can apply it, and maybe we'll make a goal or something based upon that lesson. So she and I are able to bounce the ideas off of each other. What did you think about that point that the was in the sermon? Do you think that it's a good point that we can start implementing in our lives this week or not? So that's something that we've done with each other, but a lot of people don't have that opportunity. And this life group gives singles, young people, adults, elderly people a chance to kind of talk about how does that lesson apply to us. Relate. This is a place that can allow people to build relationships. You know, we were created by God to need people. But are we with the right people we need to be with? Sometimes you just might attend a Sunday morning worship service and stare at the person in front of you, stare at the back of their head the entire time. So I don't think that that's unnecessary. I think there is a place for that. But in a small group atmosphere, you're in a circle. You guys are sharing each other's stories while you're looking at one another. And I think that's very, very important. You know, statistically, if a new member does not make any friends in a new congregation within the first 6 months, they will not stay with that congregation. And this isn't just me talking. This is facts from research that has been done over a long period of time. But congregations that have a system where they can implement friends to new people that come into that congregation in that first 6 months, statistics say that those people will stay in that congregation. You see, it's all about friendships. Is a congregation allowing a program to build relationships with their new people? Or do they sometimes get tossed to the wayside? We're trying to avoid this with this theme of building relationships and friendships that will last not just 6 months, but a long, long time. Evangelize. The church needs to be a place where you can come, study the word, share the gospels to those that need it. We can even bring our non-Christian friends to life groups, to small groups. This is a place that feels welcoming. You can welcome somebody by just saying, we're having a meal and we're talking about a few things we learned this Sunday morning at church. And that can help relax that atmosphere that otherwise may be intimidating to somebody that doesn't know too much about the church or about your congregation. So what we want to show is that we are a group of people trying to get better. We are not a perfect group. You know, I think at times if you ask a personal question to a large group of people, you may just get some blank stares or no one speaks up, and that's unfortunate. But I do know for sure that in a smaller group environment, you ask some personal questions, people will talk. And that's what we want. We want that relationship to build. Don't do it in a congregation that's so large that when you ask a question, you just get silence. One-on-one, you get that dialogue. 1-on-3, 1-on-6, you can start to build a open type atmosphere that I think people will be more susceptible to sharing things that they struggle with. And let's be honest, no one's perfect. The church is just a bunch of broken people coming together to build each other up and try to make each other stronger Christians in God's name. And I think the best part about opening up and showing that we're not perfect is that there's a natural human nature that exists that if you see somebody hurting, you want to comfort them. And that's exactly what we need. And it's hard. It's hard to do that in a large group atmosphere, but in a small group atmosphere, you can put your hand around Sister Susan and say, I understand where you're coming from. This is a struggle that we've all endured or experienced, and we can share each other's burdens at this time. You could follow up the next week. You can share encouraging letters or text messages. But without that small group environment, you may have never had that person open up, and I think that's important. Of all the countries I've been to, it's the Filipino people that enjoy bringing people to their house and fellowshipping, whether it's enjoying a meal, a merienda, or just karaoke. There's this happiness in life that happens in the home, and I think that is brought to a life group of Christians meeting together and enjoying each other's company. Now, this all sounds good, and you're just like, let's hit the road running. But what is all this going to take? What does it take for a congregation to implement a life group that is successful and one that doesn't fail? Well, I'll tell you, it takes passion. Passion is a must. If you are not passionate about your life group at your congregation, it will not work. It will fail. If you can get behind it and you can get energized and people start to see that fire behind you of how excited you are about your life group, it will be a success. God will be there, and a lot of people will realize that it is meaningful and it is natural and it's authentic. In Romans 12:11, it says, "Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord." So we're commanded to keep this zeal of life, of godliness, of spirituality, and life groups gives us that avenue. I think it's important to state that it is commanded by the Bible. Either you get fired up now or you will later. That's a joke that we've told other people, but it's true. Okay, this isn't something that we want to be scared out of hell, but it's about wanting to love. And I think that will show in your life group. The second thing I think this is going to take, if you want to be successful in your congregation, is that it's going to have to take vision. This stuff just doesn't happen well overnight. It takes somebody to see the potential and start to put it into place through careful planning, preparation, and as I said before, passion. You know, I think a lot of people want community. This is something that's embedded in us. We need it. But who's going to bring it to them? Is it going to be their secular friends, or is it going to be the church? And how are we going to do it? Are we going to do it in one seminar type atmosphere on one Sunday? Or are we going to bring it to the people in their own homes, where they are and where they can be comfortable and open up? If we don't believe God will do something in our life, most often than not, He won't do it. I think this takes a deep faith to believe that if I do what the Bible says, if I understand the scriptures and how the first century church operated, and I get passionate about it, and I have this vision where I start planning and I'm encouraging others about it, I think what you're going to find is that God will bless this ministry, and you'll get many, many people encouraged by it. You know, there's a story of a life group that had a young man who was very, very troubled, and this young man actually had to go to prison. And while he was in prison, his life group didn't fail to keep him to include him, but they noticed that through the years they maintained contact with him, they helped him, they served him, they visited him in prison, and lo and behold, when he got out of prison, he realized that life group was there for him. They cared about him. They had something that he didn't and that he wanted. And because of the relationship the life group had with the prisoner, when he got out of prison, he joined the life group and he became a Christian, and they worship God together. And this is just a beautiful story and a simple story of people loving on each other. And that's the whole premise for why we need life groups in our churches today, is because it gives us a means to love each other simply, authentically, and naturally.